Good day, everyone. I should say good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is March 11th, our regular Rossmoor Community Service District regular meeting. Can we have a call to order, please?
Director Coletta?
Here.
Director Casey?
Here.
Director Kaler?
Here.
Director DeMarco?
Here.
President Maynard?
Here. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gentlemen, tonight we're going to kind of mix up the order, if that's okay with everyone. Our general counsel has some other obligations, so we're just going to kind of move things around. So instead of moving to the presentation at this time, we're going to open it up now for public forum. If anyone has anything that they would like to say, now would be the time. And why, yes, that was perfect cueing. Please come forward, sir.
Thank you very much, board members. My name is Ralph Fartabedian. I am chairman of the Rossmoor Homeowners Association Traffic Committee. And at staff's request, I'm here to discuss RHA's position on some improvements that the community's long been asking for on access into and out of Rossmoor from the Seal Beach Shopping Center. This involves the intersection at White Cloud and Seal Beach Boulevard. Currently, Seal Beach has restrictions that do not legally permit motorists from crossing Seal Beach Boulevard from White Cloud into the shopping center, and conversely the other way. And through the years, RHA's received a number of complaints from homeowners about that restriction, saying that it forces them to make rather illogical and circuitous routes to get in and out of the shopping center and in and out of Rossmoor. We fully agree. And the RHA board as a whole discussed this matter, and we are in full agreement that the current restrictions should be lifted and motorists should have access in both directions. Also, I've recently received emails and discussed with some homeowners tickets that they've received for doing this. We've all long thought, I've long thought that these are really just nuisance tickets, and I would hope that Seal Beach finds a way to dismiss these outstanding tickets at least as it moves forward to end this restriction, which I am told they are likely to do. And if you just wouldn't mind, I'd like to bring the board and the community up to date on a couple other traffic committee issues. We also have discussed with the county traffic engineer and the Los Alamitos Unified School District traffic consultant a number of improvements that we hope will move traffic better and improve pedestrian safety in Rossmoor. These include some changes in parking restrictions that currently impede traffic on Wallingsford exiting during the school rush hours. I believe the traffic consultant has a number of recommendations for new pickup and drop-off zones around the elementary school. And importantly for homeowners in Rossmoor, as a final note, we've asked the county engineer to revisit why parking restrictions exist on Foster and Hedwig that prevent homeowners from parking in front of their homes all day. This must affect 100 or 200 homeowners. And perhaps these restrictions had some logic or rationale decades ago when they were put in place, but we want that revisited and validated if it's true. We don't think very many, we just don't see the rationale anymore. So with that, I've concluded my remarks. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions, gentlemen?
Nope.
Thank you, Ralph. Any other public comments? Okay. So at this time, gentlemen, we would like to move into our closed session, if everyone's okay with that. And this closed session is conference with our legal counsel based on existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Section D, Section 1. Did you want to say anything before we left?
If anyone wants to comment on the item before we recess to closed session, now would be the time.
Okay. If anyone wants to make a comment on this issue, now would be the time. And there you have it. We are now going to adjourn ourselves for closed session. Thanks for letting us have our closed session. Mr. Counsel, will you formalize what just took place?
Okay, at approximately 7:05 this evening, the board convened into a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9. The board discussed a single item on its closed session agenda and took no reportable action.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing I want to bring up in the agenda is item H5. This is a discussion and possible action regarding the placement of Southern California Gas Company smart meters and transmission antennas within the district. And then after this topic, we will go back to the original schedule. H5.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, members of the board, as you know, this item has been under discussion for a considerable length of time. Board members have made several inquiries and raised several issues regarding the possibility of the gas company installing a smart meter tower in our community. We've looked at various options by board direction. We actually met with Supervisor Morlock and his staff and representatives from the gas company. That was followed up with meetings with the Public Works Department and then interaction between the Public Works Department and the gas company, looking, exploring to see if there was any other options to be considered relative to this proposed installation in our community. Basically, I got a call back today from the county, actually initiated a call, got a call back from Sensen and he is their Public Works Planning Director. And he indicated to me today, late this afternoon actually, that they have been in considerable discussion with the gas company on this issue. Gas company, it took a couple days to consider a possibility of delaying this project while they install other meters to see if there could be some overlap that we could get some benefit out of and possibly avoid the possibility of installing a meter here in Rossmoor. He called back today and indicated that the gas company did get back to him, and I just got this information late this afternoon, and that they're not willing, at this point, I say willing, not able, according to the gas company, to defer or delay this project based on direction they've gotten from the Public Utilities Commission. Basically, they're concerned about redundancy capabilities, and with the plan they have now, they feel they have to move forward, and we just got that information very late this afternoon. So that's basically where we stand at this point. We have had numerous responses back from the gas company relative to your very specific questions. They probably have not responded to all those questions at this point, but at least those efforts have been made. And staff has been very diligent in trying to make sure that we're bridging that gap and communicating our board's concerns relative to this matter. That's where we are.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand the last part of what you just said, that they didn't get back to you yet, and they're planning on moving forward with their original proposal of placing that pole somewhere along Foster Road between Gertrude and Foster Mini Park?
They have gotten back to me. They've gotten back to certain board members who had asked very specific questions. Whether we agreed with those responses or not is a whole different issue.
Of course.
But they did get back. I did talk to them late last week and told them that we were still looking and exploring, is there any options for us? But I focused on Public Works, as I felt Public Works was kind of our last resort to really try to get the gas company to pay attention and see if they're, and they basically did quite an analysis in-house to see if there was any options out there to be considered. And whatever those were, they shared with the gas company, and the gas company basically got back to them, apparently either late yesterday or first thing today, and indicated to them that they weren't willing to defer or delay this project, that based on the direction they'd had from the Public Utilities Commission that they needed to move forward. I have not got that formal response from the gas company yet. That was late today from Public Works in the County of Orange.
So it looks like the Public Works involvement hasn't gained any traction.
They made the effort. No.
No, I mean,
you're
I
absolutely
think
correct.
that's fine that
You're
they made
absolutely
the
correct,
effort.
sir.
I applaud them for that.
So there's nothing left that Public Works can do legally?
That was the impression I got from their director today. He said that they really did make every effort, and they were looking at all the possibilities to see if there was anything out there. They threw out some creative solutions which apparently would not work, but at least they felt that from the Public Works standpoint that they did everything they could to try to delay this item and see if there was any possibility once these other 30, I think they said there was like 37 additional meters that were going to be installed, to see if in the installation of those, if there could be some overlap there that would avoid the necessity of planning or installing the meter in Rossmoor.
And they're not willing to put their neck out and delay the permit?
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
I think they felt that they did their due diligence. They held
Oh,
up
they
the
did.
project.
They probably came up with lots of things, and unfortunately, the gas company, coming up with any idea or working with them, you hit a brick wall.
Mr. Ruth, did you inquire of the planning department what sites they propose as an alternative site or sites for the gas company to consider?
My understanding is they didn't propose alternate sites. What they were telling or spoke to the gas company about, looking at the system that they were proposing, not just here in Rossmoor, but all the other surrounding areas, that in the event, if they could delay until those installations were made, and then to see if there would be sufficient coverage once those other installations outside of Rossmoor to pick up Rossmoor. And gas company came back, said they'd done their due diligence. They don't think that's a reasonable alternative or option, and that they're going to move forward.
Okay, and then my next question again is the same one I just asked you, and I don't say this to be funny. Did you ask them what other sites, specifically in Rossmoor, that perhaps could be specifically county property as an alternative place to plant the pole and their DCU?
No, I did not ask that specific question.
Okay. We here in Rossmoor, prior to your tenure with the board, specifically gave to Mr. Tabaoda, then Mr. Montana, alternative sites we deemed that could be used. Now again, mind you, we never received any information to substantiate that they were or were not viable options, because as to then as today, all we've received from the gas company are conclusory statements that it has to be their way, what they're defining the project to function within certain parameters, to be the way it had to be. So we have not really gleaned any information to show that our proposed sites, they're photographed. One example is the county library on Seal Beach Boulevard, the Seal Beach Library, that area, the rooftop, the surrounding area. Another would be the triangle at St. Cloud and Seal Beach Boulevard. But of course, on our side of the jurisdictional area, which is true unincorporated area, the triangle. One of which you're aware of is the site that they elected to go with, which is at Hedwig and Los Alamitos Boulevard. Another site that you may or may not be aware of was the Rossmoor Shopping Village. There are areas where a pole could be planted. There's a thoroughfare, there's an alley, if you will, behind certain businesses. Between Hedwig and yet the Rossmoor Shopping Village, behind the tire shop, all the way down to where perhaps you might say the Arco gas station is, there's an alleyway there. So we'll never know if those are viable options because no one's raised them. no one's made them show why these areas aren't viable. I'm appreciative of the information that you've communicated to myself and the board. You've attached them in our weekly updates. They've been available. But again, the letter remitted by the gas company is conclusory. There are no specific documents or other evidence substantiating the necessity of placing signal repeaters and relay poles at the particular site that they said, and they continue to state, is the only option that works. And I know that the county hasn't seen those options. So I'm at a loss that I here have to accept that conclusion. I don't know that the county has asked for the data. I mean, the county says they've done their due diligence, but they may be conclusory as far as what they've heard from the gas company, and that is deemed to be their due diligence. I don't know what that due diligence is.
Well, coming late in the game on this issue, and I'm not deferring to anything, but it seems to me that the limitations we had was that 500-foot radius.
I understood that.
And that was a constraint. And so that basically, my understanding from the gas company, obviously, is that they said that they were at they felt the absolute limit of that 500-foot radius in these locations they proposed down on Foster Road and also on Gertrude. And we actually went out, staff and I, and drove the areas and tried to calculate if they could move it over a block or 2 blocks here, and is there any option? And then putting it in on the freeway side, was that an option? Now, basically, then you start getting involved with Long Beach, you start getting involved with Caltrans, and it gets very complicated. But we did explore the possibilities that we thought were within our limitations that were imposed on us. So we tried everything we could to make sure that we were exploring those possibilities. And within those constraints, you had to either, basically the gas company laid those limitations out, and we tried to work within those limitations and came up empty-handed. So that's, and with the county, basically the county's done the same thing. And I was not privy to those discussions between the gas company and the county, except in the one meeting that we had, and our president was at that meeting with Supervisor Morlock, and we had exchange there. And actually in that meeting, the county staff was saying, well, have you looked at this and have you looked at that? They were really trying to come to some kind of a compromise on this thing. And essentially we've come up to empty-handed, at least at this stage. I would be more than happy with the board's direction to continue to pursue this, to explore any other possibilities, and to see if there's any chance whatsoever.
Mr. Ruth, let me just bring one thing out for everyone's attention, because we've had this conversation, and you've just alluded to it, trying to determine where that 500-foot sphere of influence is for that relay pole. Right now, I don't know, maybe you know, the site that we have up on the screen right now, is that Foster Mini Park the furthest west edge of that 500-foot radius which the pole could be planted? Is it in the center or the most east edge of it? Can you shed some light on that?
I'm just going to go by memory. They said that was really at the extreme limitation.
Sorry. Let me ask you this.
Correct me if I'm mistaken on that, but I think that's...
He's nodding his head affirmatively, so we'll say that Mr. Tabaoda's agreement is in his understanding. But let me ask you this. We know that behind the mini park there is a drainage canal. So if we were to take the pole hypothetically and go east a bit behind the mini park and were to be along the county drainage channel, do we know for a fact that the county has discussed this alternative site now that I'm talking about, the drainage canal, the county property, as a viable site or not?
I think that the gas company felt it was a viable site in terms of in the mini park itself in the right-of-way. And I've got mixed direction here, mixed signals from the board, because certain board members said they don't want anything in any of our parks.
Well, I agree. I'm asking the question because I didn't understand that that pole was at the extreme 500-foot portion of the radius. And so now I'm moving it back, and so I don't know what is the lesser of the evils. I don't live on that street, but for me, if I lived on Foster, it might be less unsightly to have it in the Orange County flood control channel as opposed to one in front of a mini park and two in front of directly in front of someone's home, which would be on the west side of
Right.
Foster Road.
We
So-
have looked at that.
With the permission of the board chair, may I address that issue?
Please do.
Absolutely.
Early on, when we were looking at alternate sites, we've examined the first site that they proposed, which was on Christie Lane, which was in front of 5 or 6 homes directly in front, and I said, that's a non-starter. That's when we moved into potentially other sites, such as Foster Mini Park and Gertrude. Gertrude came later because we looked at that Foster Mini Park site in all of its aspects. When we looked at moving it back east, as you indicate, Director Coletta, it made sense that it would, if you went further back into the drainage, into the channel, that you could, it would be obscured. Obviously, we can't go onto the water department site, which is right directly behind it, because they've already told everybody they're not interested in anything in their property.
What a coincidence, huh?
But the problem with going back into the channel was access. And also, you have power lines that run directly.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
You have power lines that run directly parallel to that channel, and they need to have enough clearance from that, from interference from those power lines. And they said 2 issues. 1, the power lines. 2, access on a very small roadway to get trucks and construction equipment in to do the work. And they said that they would not consider that further.
I'm looking at the picture right now. There is a view that depicts what looks like a power pole. I'm not sure if it runs parallel exactly to the Orange County,
That does,
completely along the path.
yes. And then your question about where on the mini park was this site contemplated, it was along some reach of the parkway, north or south on the parkway, depending on where it was, where there wasn't interference from drainage, from sewer, runoff water meters, other things that are in that parkway. So there's very limited space in that parkway where it could be placed.
Because that was just adjacent to the home and the mini park, as I recall, for that site.
Very close to it.
Yeah. And I had another understanding, not to muddy the waters, but that the Gertrude location was the one that was at the furthest most perimeter of the 500
The
feet.
absolute furthest, yes.
Right. So
Because
this
it's further
is somewhat inside that.
it's further north and further west, excuse me,
Correct.
further north and further west from the park mini park site.
Right. So that would indicate to me that you'd have a little more latitude around the Foster mini park if there was another possibility for the movement of the DCU.
Very, very small area to work with.
Okay.
Director DeMarco?
Henry, have you ever seen a photograph or any type of drawing that showed these spheres, these 500-foot locational maps where these poles must go, where you're saying, it's the furthest most northern? Oh,
Yep.
that's it. Okay.
That's something.
All right.
It's hard to see,
That little yellow dot, is that
It
what I'm...
sure is hard to see.
hard to say.
And then once they moved the one out of Rossmoor, did that circle change?
Well, it was just across the street.
Okay, so it was still within its circle.
It was within the circle. That was an easy one for them because, you're on one side of La Salle and then you're on the other side. And it worked for them. There was no problem. They went ahead and did that, installed it.
Let me ask this question, Mr. Tabaoda, just so that we can say we've exhausted this topic before we formulate any direction here. If the pole on Hedwig and Los Al Boulevard were moved further east on Hedwig,
It's already built,
it's already built?
Yeah. The one on Hedwig at the Catholic Church,
Really?
that DCU is actually up.
It's installed.
It's installed.
you'd be
So
looking-
anything north of that is now off
that
the,
it was
yeah.
already installed.
And I actually went and I saw it.
Oh, wow.
That's
It's not as ugly as I thought it was going to be, to
Is that
be
a picture
honest.
of it right now?
That's the picture, yes.
Yeah.
Then you're talking about the cost of a new pole, which we estimated was like $22,500, Jim? Is that the figure we?
Looked at that. We wouldn't have looked at that. Just looks like a streetlights.
Basically, what you see on the top, the flat things, are actually solar panels that power it. The picture makes it actually look less appealing than actually how it looks. It's not the eyesore that I thought it was. I still, nonetheless, am very disappointed with this outcome with the gas company. Just so everybody knows, you meet with Morlock and the Orange County CEO's office, and they said, oh, there's all kinds of options we can explore. So then we start exploring them, and then, nope, can't do it. Nope, can't do it. They were just putting on the PR smile for county officers, you know. And it just seems like every time we ask a reasonable question, we get an unreasonable answer. So I'm not very pleased at all with the gas company. Personally, I think I might be changing out my gas appliance to a all-electric appliance in my own little civil outrage. But nonetheless, I think that the fact that it's being forced upon us, the site that does the least amount of damage, I do believe, is the Gertrude. It's not in view of anyone's front window. It actually, if you see right there, those two pictures, it's actually on the side of homes, and the homes across the street would not actually see it.
What about, what view are we looking at? If I were taking that picture on the far right of the screen, would my back be to the west, east, the north, or the south?
Now that question
It's
confused me.
facing north.
Would my back be to the north and taking a picture in southbound, or?
Your back would be south and you would be looking north. And if you took the picture from the antenna site, you'd be looking at a similar wall of a side yard on the other side of the street.
That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So
So,
it's two side yards as opposed to front yards. It's the only location that doesn't directly impact the front side of a house.
And my understanding is there was not a lot of pushback from the whatever residents are near that particular
Well, there
site.
was and there wasn't. It depended on when they asked, and you know, initially there was none, and then there was some, so.
Yeah, I found that out by knocking on doors and the people saying, gee, we never saw anybody come and talk to us from the gas company.
yeah. You look at the Foster, anything on Foster is going to be an eyesore for a resident who lives there. Not just the residents
True.
now who might say, hey, I'm okay with it, but what about the residents, Generation 2, Generation 3? Decisions we make now affect the future.
Well, it actually faces several homes.
Exactly, and I have been very vocal that the RCSD, what do we do and what do we do well? We manage our parks, we manage our trees, so having that on any of our many parks, I will fight really hard on that one. I don't know how hard of a fight I can do with the gas company, though. But I personally think that if we're at that point where it's coming, the Gertrude is the best solution that we have determined.
Yeah, assuming we have to cave in on this.
You know, one of the things that was brought up to me this evening were if we were to have additional poles, hypothetically. So if one were at the triangle at St. Cloud and Seal Beach Boulevard, and then if the other pole were, say, hypothetically, would be behind the sound wall, or if one were on the county library, and the third one would be, again, behind the sound wall somewhere. Would there be any way to modulate, adjust the signal so that the fears of too much overlap or not enough coverage where there's an overlap could be accommodated such that we wouldn't have to place one on Foster Road or Gertrude? And I don't have that answer. And the only way to ask is through the Planning and Development Department staff that's interfacing with the gas company and being a part of that discussion where we could actually see documentation proving that, rather than getting, you know, conclusions, summaries, you know, as you've been getting, Mr. Ruth. What does the board think about that?
I know I have been very vocal on certain things that I think they should owe us. But it's just amazing that every time anyone asks them on how their technology works, they say it's unreasonable and it's just the way it is, and we've got these smart people. So we've been pushing to say at least give us the documents back.
Right.
Give us a scientific paper, give us a white paper, because if you can't explain the technology and you're asking us to take your word for it, at least put together a white paper that shows how this whole thing works. And their response was, it's proprietary, which again, I say, well, that's convenient. Everything that we've asked of them, they put up no's after no's, and it's either unreasonable, you won't understand it, it's proprietary, no, we can't do that. And the idea of them actually, one of the solutions is add an extra data collection, and there, I don't see how. Just based on everything, every single wall that they have put up, we have gone to our supervisor, we've gone to Public Works, we've gone to the county office, we've contacted them. The only thing that we haven't done, Council, is are there any legal options for us to explore?
Unfortunately not.
I mean, they were bound and determined, once they, quote, according to them, compromised on the first side of the DCU, they came back with the answer that the next one's going to go pretty much where we tell you. We'll give you some basic boundaries, and that's it. Anything else we propose, they say, nope, that's out of the question. We're not going to consider that. Doesn't fit into the 500 feet, to the point where you're tired of giving them other options because they're just going to come back with the same answer.
And then when you ask for specifics, they say, no, it's proprietary.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the county is in a better position.
And I'm surprised that, to be honest, Ms. Ruth, I'm surprised that Public Works has given up on this, because I think everything we've asked for has been very reasonable, especially in explaining how their technology works, how there's 200 and something plus data collection units throughout all of Orange County. And if we move one instead of 500 feet to 1,000 feet on the other side of our wall, the whole thing doesn't work.
Yep.
Everything that they have said has been unreasonable. They admit it's unreasonable, but then when you ask them for a technical document, they say, well, no, we can't do that. Well, can you do this? No. They are just a department of no at the gas company, and I wish there was some way that Public Works would be able to exercise a little bit more muscle for the county that they manage and that we vote for and that we are asking them for help. Because at this point, we've exhausted everything we can do, and I don't know if they've actually really exhausted, but I think it at least warrants a question. Are you sure there isn't anything the Public Works can't do?
I'd be more than happy to pose that question. I think I know the answer, but I'd be more than happy to do it. I'd be more than happy to do it, sir.
I'm willing to swing for that third time. Just, I want another pitch.
You know, the thing that you hit upon, and I hate to say it, but I have to say it, is we're the principal, if you will, and they're the agent. You know, we basically pay real property assessments and other fees, and by default, if you will, I'll use that word, we entrust their due diligence to care for us. And so there's a fiduciary duty on their part to really swing their hardest when holding the bat on our behalf. And I understand that the PUC regulates this area to an extent and it acknowledges the technology. But I agree with Mr. Maynard. It's hard to fathom that it's such a proprietary matter that one of us, or even Mr. Ruth, who would be the ear in the room of the Planning and Development Department as a guest, to come and listen to these meetings, would run off and use that as a license to copy their technology and go start your own system. I don't find it's just hard to fathom to get one's head around that is so sensitive to data that no one can see it. To really trust the boundaries of this 500-foot limit.
One of the, not necessarily arguments, one of the statements was made early on was, had we gotten involved much earlier, like a couple, 3 years back when they started this system, and I have no idea the details how this thing was structured at the time, before they start making the commitments and refining the system, we would have more latitude to see what we could do to avoid. But once the system is in place, it's engineered out, and huge investment, changing that system is very, very difficult.
Well, that's if we believe the premise, Mr. Ruth, again, that they're trying to get us to drink. And the point of the matter is, here's the contrast. You know, not that I necessarily agree with the project as to all the variables that are being discussed, but the modification of the freeway, the HOV connector, at least there's an outreach. There's places where people can go and take the time and look at the blueprints, look at the mock diagrams, go to the town hall meetings, and you can comment, but there wasn't that opportunity. And I know that you know this, but I wanted to make the record clear that there wasn't the opportunity where they came to Rossmoor 5 years ago, 3 years ago, and said, hey, hi, we're making a visit to all the neighboring communities, and this is where the technology is going. This is where the business has to go. We view it's in our best interest, in your best interest, but we'd like you to know that this is what's going to happen. There isn't the money to underground everything. There's going to be the necessity for a telemetry pole to be installed in places, strategic places. And I know Rossmoor, you were built before, not like suburbia or other areas where everything was underground. And there's more than just lamp standards. You have actually utility poles, wood poles. This is another pole we're proposing to put in your community. We found out about this less than a year ago, or about a year ago. And the system was already built out, and we're the last one, and the train's coming, and if you get in the way, you're going to get run over, and that's just how I feel.
Yeah, Mr. Ruth, if they made that comment of only if, you guys would have worked with us soon, that's just another one of their lies and one of their massive distortions of the truth. Because he did come back here probably more than a year ago saying that we're going to go into these not data collection, but we're going to do smart meters. We're going to let you know, and we will work with you to find the right locations. And that's what they said at the beginning. We come in peace. That wasn't the truth. So if they've alluded to you as quote unquote the new guy going, well, we could have worked together back then, but you guys chose not to, that is just an outright distortion of the facts. I know I'm not shooting the messenger. I just want you to be aware that they're playing you. They're playing you, okay?
Okay.
Not shooting the messenger.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Maynard and my fellow colleagues, I just wondering if it's worthwhile, or if there's a consensus or a thought besides what I'm thinking, to meet with Mr. Morlock and the Planning and Development Director and try, like as you say, Mr. Maynard, another strike at the ball, a third strike, if it's worthwhile.
I directed Mr. Ruth to reach out to John again. We met with him once, and his comment is he is not comfortable. In fact, I'm not going to even say it. Mr. Ruth, what did Mr. Morlock tell you when you reached out to him last?
He said he felt very uncomfortable directing staff, that there would be abuse of the power of his office, and encouraged me to talk to Public Works and gave me the name of the gentleman to do, and I did exactly that. And I met with the Public Works people. But the supervisor did not feel that he should participate. I think he felt he fulfilled his obligation when he hosted the meeting.
Okay. But Alfred, what we haven't done is maybe an outreach to the CEO and the CEO's office.
Which CEO?
Orange County CEO.
You mean the county council or CEO?
No, CEO.
CEO.
What do you think the CEO would do?
I just know that if we've already ran out of options with our supervisor,
Oh, I
and
see.
Public Works is saying no, what is the last possible door? The office of the CEO of Orange County.
Mr. Ruth, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's an outside possibility. I'd be more than happy to meet with him, Mr. Giancarlo.
Thank you.
The CEO.
Is it the CEO or CAO?
CEO.
And who would that be today?
It's a CEO, but they treat it like a CAO. I mean, it's had a history there throughout the county, but it is a CEO.
Who is that person?
Mr. Giancarlo came out of Waste Management. He was Director of Waste Management, was promoted up to a CEO.
Okay. So,
I don't know what else we can do.
I'm all
I'm
for anything.
frustrated
I think we need to try one more time. That's my personal thought. I don't know if my colleagues feel the same, or if I'm the only person that feels that way, besides Mr. Maynard and Mr. Casey.
Director Coletta, what solution for your two-pole scenario? Would that work in your?
I don't know. I think that we should try. It's, if nothing venture, nothing gain, I guess is the old proverb. I don't have any other options that I can see. I have Mr. Supervisor Morlock through Mr. Ruth stating that he think it would be, quote, an abuse of his position, close quote, to lean on the gas company. I'm not going to comment on that. I just don't know how to read that. You know, and if you go to the CEO, he may or may not get involved. If he chooses to, I'm sure he's going to, I would imagine, call in the Director of Planning and Development and Public Works and sit down and say,
Yeah.
what have you guys
Likely.
done? And the community is requested to know what efforts you feel are your defined due diligence. I mean, some of the questions we asked her tonight, we didn't get answered Mr. Ruth, not because Mr. Ruth doesn't want to give it to us, but he's getting conclusions himself.
I think that's a fair question, at least on the Public Works, that they claim that they've done their due diligence. I'd like to see what that was. So I think it's reasonable, and I agree that, one, we still continue to reach out with Public Works and ask specifically for everything they put on the table and the response that the gas company came. And we make an overture to the CEO's office and see if any department with muscle will help us out. At this point, beggars can't be choosy.
Well, at this point in time, you know, we've gone far enough with this, and we've done enough approaches. I don't think this is the time to stop, even though it looks like in many ways we're up against it. Those two possibilities sound about the most reasonable to me, and I say we should push forward in that direction.
Let me ask a question of Mr. Our District Council. Assume, Mr. Kovacevic, that the technology is proprietary. Can you think of some suggestion, if at all, anything that would assist us and them in meeting and seeing this proprietary data? Any stipulations, anything that could be crafted? Assuming that they want to engage us and go into that area.
Theoretically,
I'm sorry.
They want to engage us.
Theoretically, they could meet with Jim Ruth and have him sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement and whatnot, but logic tells me that the information that you need would necessarily have to be on file with the PUC, number one, because they regulate this area and they have to know what's going in there, at least to some degree. You're not asking for
Secret patent information.
Yeah, none of that. So between the PUC and, because it's going to be transmitting, I don't know if it's a radio frequency or a microwave frequency or whatever, but they also have to have applications on file with the FCC, certain public records. So between the FCC for the radio communication or microwave communication and the PUC, I would think there would be enough information out there already that's public to get the answers that you need. I just don't see that being a proprietary piece of information. But if it is, the answer is, I mean, sure.
Well,
they could sit down with Jim and have him sign an NDA. I suppose they wouldn't do it, but that's an option.
Mr. Kovacevic, assuming that what you say is all correct, I'm not going to debate you on that. If we were to request that they provide in a meeting with Public Works, Planning and Development, the CEO, Mr. Ruth, in a closed room, that very information they lodged with the PUC and nothing more, to see if that would demonstrate the limitations of the system. Would there be a need to structure any agreements to protect their data?
There wouldn't need to be, no, but they wouldn't have to give it to you. They're not subject to the Public Records
No,
Act.
I
They don't have
understand
to turn
that.
it over. They could play hardball and say, we're not going to give it to you.
No, I
We're wasting our
understand that.
time, go to the PUC and ask for it, and then that's going to take some time.
But you're correct. You're correct. I agree with you. It would cost us money and time.
Right.
And they would make us do that in order to learn their system when we're the fiduciary, the ratepayers, the consumers, and they won't let certain selected people see the data.
It just doesn't make sense to me that the level of, you're asking for information that's on a very high level of abstraction. You're not asking for the nuts and bolts, that the RF engineer needs to understand that's maybe proprietary. You need to know basic things on a much higher level of abstraction. I don't think that, number one, would be a trade secret. And number two, why they couldn't tell Jim Ruth in a room and explain it to him is beyond me. It just seems illogical to me.
Exactly.
I don't see why
it's
they would have a
convenient
problem
for
with
them.
that. It just sounds very odd to me. It's not anything that I've ever heard in this context
Yeah.
before, you know. And I've normally, when these issues come up, we're dealing with very private companies, not a San Diego, or not the gas company, which is, you know, it's a privately owned utility, publicly regulated. You're usually dealing with things like Verizon and Sprint, you know, who have much more of an interest in trade secrets than a quasi-private public institution like the gas company. So this is very odd. But, you know, I'd be happy to talk with Jim about it and, you know, work up a conversation with the gas company if you want and see what they're willing to do,
Yeah.
so I can understand the issue more. This is the first time I'm hearing about that, and it just sounds very odd. I've never heard anything like that.
And I'm surprised that Public Works just accepted their answers and ran with it. Because to me, it's just very simple. Please explain to us, again, out of 200, I'm just making up a number, out of 248 of these data collection units, the one in Rossmoor, that instead of being in the radius of 500 feet, it goes to 1,000 feet. Or two, why don't we just make one very large tower that goes even higher, so now it's higher up so it can emit even more? Just explain to us in common words why that can be done besides, well, I can't explain it, but you just have to believe us, because that's all the gas company has told everybody is, we can't explain it, but we've got these smart people in Cleveland, which I don't believe smart people are in Cleveland. No, I'm sorry. So in general, I think that's been my sticking point, is just get us a document that we understand in real English of why, because you keep making me sound like I'm reasonable, that I can't move it from 500 feet to 1,000 feet, or if we do move it 1,000 feet, instead of being 26 feet, let's make it 38 feet, so it's now taller. Just explain to me why those aren't viable options. And they have never been able to answer that question of anybody, me, Morlock, Alfred, Mr. Ruth, Public Works, and we all sit here, and we're the only ones saying, well, no, we don't accept that. Right. And they're saying, well, tough, because it's proprietary now. So they just keep coming up with convenient arguments on their side of why we can't understand.
Right. And it seems to me that those answers are grounded in basic physics and basic RF engineering and not anything proprietary.
Yeah.
So if you want, I can talk with Jim and see if they'll have that conversation. They probably won't. But, I mean, we could ask it in a different way and see what they come up with, at least get some explanation with the understanding that we're not asking for proprietary information. We're asking, you know, first grade level RF engineering and basic physics questions. Why is that signal not going to reach? Why is it not going to extend? Why is the transmitter not going to work? Why is the receiver not going to work?
Yeah.
That's it.
And one tower out of 248
Right.
in Rossmoor. We have that much power that we can break their whole system by moving it just a few extra feet. Who knew?
Mr. Ruth, if you do get that meeting with the CEO and any of the support staff, I'm sure Mr. Casey or I would be glad to attend with you.
Most definitely.
There you have it.
Okay?
To impress upon the CEO the importance of this issue. I know Mr. Maynard's taking the time out of his personal schedule, and I'll take the time off of work to go with you if that's of any assistance, and I'm sure Mr. Casey will do what he can reasonably to adjust his schedule to all of us convene.
You bet.
Anything else, Tony?
And Director Coletta, just because you're more involved and understand, well, you are. What's, in your opinion, what should our ultimate goal be? The removal of that pole, or just moving it outside of the 500 feet circle?
Well, the ideal situation for myself, and I've said it before, is to not have additional pole visible in Rossmoor.
Absolutely.
I tried suggesting I would be reasonable and go for the Orange County Flood Control Channel if that was a place deemed non-visible. I was trying to hear some echo here, and all I got from this side of the room was the County of Orange and perhaps made it available, but gas company said, through Mr. Ruth, no. Okay, so now I'm back to what else can I do?
Okay.
What else can I suggest? I've heard Gertrude, but that's visible.
Yep.
So I'm thinking, why is not an additional pole besides the one that they wanted on Foster, but placed in different locations where they modulate the frequency range or the height
Yep.
of the pole to accept the signal and deliver, relay the system signal? So there is this redundancy. I don't know why or why not. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe it is feasible, but it would come out with a lot of effort to get to that point, to get that answer. And I don't know. That's what I'm thinking. We know that by default, if we were to acquiesce, Gertrude sounds like it's on the table.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just don't see how they've been so unreasonable and now asking for another pole. I just can already predict the added cost. No. I mean, that's why, to me, moving it is trying to come up with some solution besides being in front of someone's house, being in our community. Maybe it can be on another side of a wall, taller tower, what have you.
Right.
But I could see where they're probably going to say no because, you know, they're not going to want the added cost of the pole and the DCU and all that stuff.
Well, they've already verbalized that.
Yeah, they said they're not, yeah, so to me, again, it's just, we're trying to suggest moving it farther out, and they can't give us an explanation of why that can't be done, and that's always been my sticking point, is that they haven't been able to articulate why.
No, it's-
Besides, trust me.
It's very frustrating.
Anything else, gentlemen? Okay,
One question, Mr. President. Would you like me to pursue the meeting with the county CEO?
Yes, I would.
I'd be happy to do that.
yes, with the CEO's office, yes.
Okay, and I will see if I can arrange for a meeting with Director Coletta, maybe to meet with us.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Casey, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, I think we're now finally going to go back to the original order, which we're now going to go back to Section A, number 4. We are at presentation. We have Lieutenant Robert Gunzel for our quarterly crime statistics from the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you.
Welcome, Lieutenant.
Thank you. Okay, I was reminded by Dorothy Fitzgerald that because of the adjustment of my last visit, we didn't cover October. I just have hard numbers for October because I wasn't able to get the drill down into the data, but we had 14 total Part 1 crimes for the month of October. Followed by November, which was a busy month with 17, and I'll go in more into detail on November and December and January. For the totals of 2013, 148, as I promised Director Coletta we'd stand her last year, or 2012 was 163 Part 1 crimes. And January is 8. So if I can just go into detail on some of these. November 2013, there's 3 residential burglaries. As you notice on some of these, that unlocked rear, I have highlighted on my copy, unlocked rear sliding door. Another one was an unlocked bedroom window. These are kind of things that almost every one of the burglaries, the suspect comes into the back of the house where he's out of view and he's got time to do whatever he's going to do. And that's not to say that they won't break a glass door, as it says in number 2 up here, which is hard to read. But leaving an unlocked door is making it almost impossible to catch someone. You break a slider, that makes a lot of noise. One vehicle burglary, there was no signs of forced entry on that vehicle. A loss on that one was skateboard papers and pens and the like. 5 grand thefts. Now, catalytic converters, we had a total of 6 for November. I want to talk about that a little bit. Just doing a little bit of research. What they're doing, most of the vehicles that are or the people that are victims of catalytic converter theft have Toyota 4Runners or similar type vehicles. And the reason for that is because suspect can walk down the street, slide underneath the car real quick in the middle of the night, and undetectable for the most part unless deputies are driving or people are out walking and looking under cars. And it has happened before, but it's very hard to detect. And I heard a gentleman in the back talking about this isn't something new. It's happened in Rossmoor, but using a Sawzall or something of that nature with a battery powered, what we've discovered, our investigators, is what these guys will do to remain absolutely silent is they use a pipe cutter, like a plumber uses. You twist it, spin it around, twist it, spin around, and it's undetectable. So you're under the car for a matter of minutes. Yeah. If these things are bolted in, they just cut them at either end and slide out and they're gone. So we did have, like I said, 6 of those. The metal in a catalytic converter is platinum or palladium, and the stuff per ounce, they say, is one of the most expensive parts of your car. So metal dealers and things will buy that, you know. And that does happen all over the county, but Rossmoor looks like probably got hit by 1 or 2 people over a few night period. Petty thefts, again.
I have a question on the Cadillac converters.
Sorry, sir.
I see that you have some of them as grand thefts.
Right.
But you have a few that are petty thefts. Is that because they're older cars or different value?
It's a matter of value. $950 is the cutoff between grand theft and petty theft.
Okay.
And I think it was just a matter of it may have been an older car where a deputy put a value of less than $950.
Wow.
So it's a total of 6. To me, they're all Part 1 crimes. So yeah, it's just a matter of value is what the cutoff was. Again, with the petty thefts, unlocked vehicles, 3 unlocked vehicles with the petty thefts, and I can't stress more, credit cards, cash left in the vehicle that was unlocked. That's not helping our cause. Okay, December of 2013 was a little bit more promising. 1 residential burglary, no signs of forced entry on that one, and the loss was a shower steamer. It's kind of unusual, so it is what it is. We just take the report. The next one was it was 3 different vehicle burglaries, but one MO was the same, punch door lock on these cars. Again, as you see on Davenport, wallet, credit cards, and cash kept in the car. One act of vandalism. So December was relatively quiet. January 2014, we had 8 total Part 1 crimes, 1 attempted residential burglary with no entry, and then the 2 residential burglaries. Now, on the second one here on Kenilworth, you see there was an open garage. If you follow the blotter, you see a lot of deputies respond to or putting out the calls of open doors. Most of the time it's open garage doors. And I've done that myself working Rossmoor at night. You come in and the garage doors are all open. Well, people aren't shy about going into a garage door to get into a car. So I'll work with Dorothy about putting that in addition to the catalytic converters out with the RHA. 3 petty thefts. Unlocked vehicle, and then they removed a house, open house sign from a yard. That's also very unusual. And then 2 stolen vehicles. So that is our Part 1 crimes for the quarter. I also wanted to discuss with the board, and we haven't done this prior, is what we started to do, and this was all as a result of Yorba Linda going through the struggles they did during their contract with Brea. A lot of information was put out, and the Orange County Register printed out a report about response times, and it showed the sheriff's response times for priority ones at like 15 minutes. Those of us that been out in the field know that's not accurate. Now, the difficulty, and the reason I bring this up is City of Los Al is doing some sort of audit, and they hired a private company, and they called us to find out what our response times were. And so I shared them with the company, but with the caveat, I want to make sure that Los Al and the Sheriff's Department measure them the same way. There's no set way of measuring response times. And I'm just using hypotheticals, when a department says we have a 3-minute response times to priority ones, that's not the whole picture. Our response times are measured from the time the first call taker picks up the phone until the time the deputy gets to the door, because that's what the citizens want to know. They don't care about how long it takes a dispatcher to send it. None of that stuff up in dispatch matters. So a lot of agencies will give you that. Drive time, basically, is what we call it. If we were just to measure drive time, our response times are off the charts great, but we don't do that. We account for everything. So what we've started doing in the last several months is we reconcile all the, first of all, from priority ones to code 3 responses. Now, all of our priority ones are code 3 responses, where it was deputy's discretion before, depending on what the call was. If you get a priority 1, it's a code 3 response for us. The sheriff has designated a 5-minute goal for all priority ones. So anything over 5 minutes, we take a look at. We drill down in and find out why it was over 5 minutes. So I took a look from October all the way till present day. And what we do on our chart, and I was going to include this on the PowerPoint, but it's hard to describe without having the explanation codes, which are something that we use as to why we didn't respond within 5 minutes. For instance, in November, we had an 8-minute response time, so we looked into that one. Well, on that one, deputies were coming, they got the call, and then on the way here, something happened, they called back dispatch, and it got upgraded to a priority 1. Well, it wasn't originally a priority 1, it got upgraded to a priority 1. So that explains, by putting a number in the explanation code, a 14-minute response time also in November. That one has an explanation code. It was determined it wasn't a code 3 response. So these are all explainable, but without including the matrix, it's kind of hard. So I'd rather just update them on a quarterly basis for you folks. But our average is 4 minutes and 5 seconds. So within our range. And like I said, my goal is the Sheriff's Department's goal is 5 minutes. I would hope with the amount of units we have in Rossmoor, it's much lower than that. So most of them have a minute and 59 seconds in here, things of that nature, 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So another thing we also do that we made clear to deputies when we rolled this out is to, if, for instance, if it was a medical situation where county fire was on scene, we don't need to respond code 3 because public safety is already there. And no need to endanger the public with deputies responding code 3 when fire is already on scene. So those kind of things are also on here. Any questions?
Just one thing. If you take away the catalytic converter thefts in November, it looks like the level of crime activity is pretty much the same in all 3 months. And aside from those where people were careless, left the car unlocked, left something accessible to the public, that the rest of these would be fairly hard to prevent when people are like punching in a car door.
Right.
It's hard to mitigate against that and some of the other activities, but
Matter of seconds.
except for the converters, it seems like, I hate to say it's at a reasonable level because you don't want any, but
Right, that's my goal, 0, but.
it doesn't seem all that
As unreasonable as
extreme.
I'd say park your Toyota 4Runner in the garage. I mean, that's not a reasonable request. Most of them are in the street or the driveway.
Well, what was the car that had the catalytic converter? You find a way to get those in a garage somewhere, I guess, because it
Every
looks
car
like
has
that's a
one.
prime target.
If it's tall enough to crawl underneath it, I would park it in the garage, but, yeah.
What an eye opener, a little pipe thing on each side and say, whoop, I just dropped it down. It's
Some
mine."
bolt, some unbolt, but a number of them are welded, so they cut them with pipe
Yeah.
cutters.
Lieutenant, I got a question. Were any of these catalytic converters thefts, you think, related? Did they happen in a certain time span, like a day or a night?
It was
or-
with over a few minute or a few day span, so I'm almost positive they're related, either to one person or to a group of people. I just sitting here waiting during closed session, I did a little research on the palladium, and they say that an ounce or a pound of palladium is worth $65,000. There's only ounces in a typical catalytic converter, but you can imagine stealing 6 of them and going to a metal recycler. You got a couple $100 per converter. You can feed your drug habit for a month.
Yep.
So that's a
And-
couple nights of easy work.
And countywide, how are the thefts of catalytic converters in the last quarter? I mean, do you see that as, I mean, it seems to me, if you're saying they're related, that there was a couple individuals that just came into Rossmoor over the, the few days to, like you said, collect some catalytic converters and go to the
Yeah.
refinery and
I don't know countywide. I can do a little research on it. I know when I say this isn't something new, throughout the years this has gone on, and it's the same vehicles, same type vehicles, catalytic converter thefts, and it happens all over the place. I'm just, you know, my other areas of responsibility, I haven't looked at all the data from those. For here in Villa Park, I have. Villa Park has very few. A little bit different as far as the streets are very dark. The houses are set way far off the streets usually. Doesn't yield itself or doesn't lend itself to this type of theft. Where here, you know, there's a lot of cars on the street. There's a lot of demographics that are different.
And one other thing is does the Orange County Sheriff have I know you have a property crime division, but are you actively, like, because I know places that buy these have to report to you guys, you know, make and you know, they take driver's license, and is that being done also?
Yeah, they do on jewelry stores and pawn shops. I'm not sure about metal recycling.
No, the metal too. It's a metal dealer, so they should be reporting.
Right. Well, and this being so close to LA County, my
Sure.
question, my investigator would be if he goes to a metal
Sure.
dealer in
No,
Long
you're
Beach
right.
or in LA, does that become an issue where they send us the pawn ticket? That I don't know, because I know
Well,
we
it's
get
not
pawn
going.
tickets.
It's not going to a pawn shop or a secondhand dealer. They're not going to buy a
Right.
catalytic converter.
Right, metal
Goes to a
recycling.
metal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I don't know. But I also found out recently, because if you kept up on the news, our area of Cowan Heights, which is also my responsibility, suffered like 15 residential burglaries in a number of weeks. And they were just getting inundated with residential burglaries, all rear window smashes or rear window open sliders. High number of thefts with a lot of loss. When the investigators told me they were hitting all the pawn shops in the area over there, which there aren't a lot, but of Augusta and Orange, and found out the stores that buy gold, like a jewelry store, they don't report the same as pawn shops do.
Well,
So people just go and
I can
sell
tell
it.
you, as a licensed pawnbroker myself, I can tell you that the law enforcement should, I mean, every jeweler that takes that stuff, all the gold buyers, and again, as gold is going down, and you're right, palladium's $700 an ounce, platinum's $1,400, gold's $1,300. It's gone down. It used to be a lot higher than that, but they're required to report, and it's law enforcement sometimes doesn't act on that. Yeah. Same thing around in this area, that not just, I mean, there is no pawnbrokers in this area, but there are secondhand dealers.
Right.
And, you know,
We buy
all your-
gold signs,
Yep.
you know.
And, you know, all these iPods and stuff that are getting stolen, it could be as easy as just walking across Los Al Boulevard and selling it to a computer place.
Well, and if it's just to bring up for just a sec, if it's an iPod or an iPhone, you should have locate your iPhone activated, and we find those all the time. Had one in Yorba Linda where, you know, my predecessor Bob ran, their deputies drove to a guy's house in Corona and recovered an iPad that was stolen that afternoon.
That's a neat feature.
Yeah, so people that don't know about it that should be something that they. But yeah, the cash for gold places, I don't see them playing by the same rules as pawn dealers.
So, that's it. Thank you very much, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Next up tonight, we have Section D, reports to the board, or report of the Budget Committee regarding FY 2013 and 2014 recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. The Budget Committee report, received the report of the Budget Committee recommending approval of the fiscal year 2013-2014. It's our mid-year budget adjustments. The Budget Committee met on February 25th, 2014 to review the current state of the district's budget and make recommendations to the board. Documents were reviewed by the committee on the district's budget and are attached. Following are the recommendations of the committee. Number one, recommend the board approve adjustments to Fund 10, 30, and 40 budgets to account for estimated increases, reductions in expenditures and/or revenues, and recommended adjustments to the CIP project list. The committee was briefed on the adjustments and recommendations made by staff. There's three recommendations, actually: a transfer of $70,000 from Fund 30 to Fund 40 to pay for repairs to the Rossmoor signature wall, Transfer $17,500 from Fund 40 to Fund 10 to pay for upgrading of the district's computer system. And the last recommendation for the board to approve resolution number 14-03-11-01 at the appropriate time on the agenda, which is G1. District's policy under number 3020, budget preparation, adoption, and revision requires mid-year budget adjustments be approved by resolution. And as I said, that's under G1. Budget Committee Agenda Item C1 dated February 25th, 2014. With the discussions with the general manager and mid-year budget adjustments. So those are before you on G1 tonight for adoption of the resolution, which comes later in the agenda.
Okay. Any questions to the committee? No?
No.
Is there someone from the committee who would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve item D1.
Is there someone?
Second.
You're on the committee too, right?
Other Budget Committee, second.
Good, so you guys are in line. Okay, all in favor of adopting the budget for the remainder of this year, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let it be known that it passed 5-0.
Thank you.
Moving on to Section E, consent calendar. These items are expected to be routine, they're non-controversial, to be acted upon by the board of directors at one time. If any of you would like to pull an item, now would be the time, so we can act upon it separately. Is there anyone who would like anything pulled?
No.
Nothing.
All in approval of our consent, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Consent agreed upon 5-0. We do not have a public hearing, so we go straight to the resolution, which I believe this is the one that we were just discussing. This is resolution number 14-03-1101, establishing the annual budget revenues and expenditures mid-year budget adjustment, total amounts for fiscal year 2013 through 14 for the Rossmoor Community Service District. Is there a motion from one of the committee members?
So motioned.
Second.
All in favor of resolution 14-03-1101, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let it be known resolution 14-03-1101 passed 5-0. It now brings us to our regular calendar. We are now on section H1, which is the adoption of the 2014-2015 budget calendar. Mr. Ruth.
Where is it? Here we go. Yes, Mr. President, members of the board, the calendar is before you for your consideration tonight. Staff has reviewed that with the committees. And effective March 11, 2014, submit the budget calendar to the board, and as you can see, the remainder of the dates through April, May, June, July, and final adoption of your budget on August 12, 2014. It's submitted for your consideration tonight and adoption of that budget calendar.
Does anybody have any questions about any of the dates?
No. No questions.
So please look at this from a point of view, if you're on one of these committees, example CIP committee, are you going to be in town April 25th? Bill? Oh, you're not on that, Alfred? So look at this from a point that there's some dates here that obviously this is a schedule.
What's that? We're on H.
I may not be here for the August
H1.
12th meeting, 2014.
H1.
Maybe
August
on
12th?
vacation, but
Okay.
Keep on going.
H1.
But that's the final date for a final budget.
Yeah,
Well, actually,
hopefully
that August 12th, is that, does anyone know if that August 12th date on this calendar is a board meeting? Is that the second Tuesday of the month?
Let me see here.
I presume it is. That's.
If it is,
It's,
I hope you planned well.
What's that now? In April?
August what?
August 12th, what day is
August
that?
12th is the second
Tuesday.
something.
All right, indeed
There
it
we go,
is.
okay, so we all should be here.
Second Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of adoption of this calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Let it be known, calendar approved 5-0. Next, we have RHA request for district co-sponsorship of 2014 Rossmoor Community Festival, item H2.
Yeah, Mr. President, members of the board, these programs, next three programs, actually have been participating in co-sponsorship with the Rossmoor Community Services District for several years. They're requesting waiver of fees and they're requesting additional support from staff. Other than that, there's no monetary contribution to these organizations who provide a very fine service to the community. Recommend your approval.
Is there anyone from RHA who's here to talk about this tonight? No? Okay. Any discussion, gentlemen?
No, I would move that we continue to support this. My motion is that we do as the RHA has requested.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Yeah, second, exactly.
I'm giving it to Mr. DeMarco, whoever's keeping records here. Okay, all in favor of
Aye.
H2? Aye? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Let it be known 5-0 for the festival. Brings us to number 3, the Youth Center request for co-sponsorship of the Summer Youth Program, item number H3.
Once again, Mr. President, members of the board, they provide very fine service to our community. They're asking for an adjustment in the starting time hours and a waiver of the fees, which if they had to pay the fees, it would be prohibitive based on their income and based on their ability to pay. So we're recommending a waiver of the fees and a modification of the hours starting at 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m., 8 hours a day.
Okay.
Did we waive the fees last year, or was there
Yes, sir,
some
we
sharing?
did. We have
Okay, I
historic-
thought it was the same thing, but I just
historically
wanted
we
to
have,
refresh
yes,
my
sir.
memory.
Yes, sir.
And last year, we also approved them starting at 7 a.m. as well.
Yes, sir.
That's what I thought. I believe Lena's here. Hi, Lena. Come on up.
Thanks for hanging.
Good evening.
Good evening. So tell us what's in store this summer.
This summer, 2014, will mark 25th partnership between the Youth Center and Rossmoor Community Service District. Because of this partnership, and our partnership is just simply fantastic, we were able to bring superb quality of summer camp here locally at Rossmoor Park. Also, because of this partnership, we were able to give scholarships to local families who can't afford to send their children to summer camp. Just last year, we were able to provide 38 scholarships to families who couldn't afford to send their kids to the summer camp. What's in store this year? We have a lot of new ideas that we're planning and trying to execute. We concentrate on keeping the kids active. So this year we're bringing 10 different sports clinics to the summer camp at absolutely no cost to the campers. So they will learn how to play softball and soccer, different sports that maybe their families are not able to introduce them to, so they can continue being active during the school year. Also, the new thing that we're trying to add this year is a mini pre-camp. We noticed that in the past, a lot of 5-year-olds who come to our summer camp are a bit scared and intimidated by the large amount of campers and structure. They want to be there and they are scared to be there. So we're adding that 1 hour a week, an introduction for parents and little kids, for 4-year-olds who want to come to our summer camp and always wanted to, but are a little afraid. So we call it a mini camp hour. The additional thing that we add in this year is an art day. We want to concentrate that art is important, and a lot of the times the kids don't have an opportunity to learn about art. So this year they will learn every week a little bit more about the art, and one of the cool projects they will do, they will paint upside down on the chairs in there. We're working with RCSD also to see how we can combine 2 very, very successful programs this summer, Movies in the Park and Our Kids Night Out. The Youth Center puts together every 3rd Friday of the month, Kids Night Out for the parents, so it's really the parents' night out. We watch the kids, the parents go out, and this year we thought it would be just natural to combine those 2 together, and we're working in the process to see how we could put that program together. It's a 25th anniversary this year, and the Youth Center always, every year, puts together a community support campaign where we celebrate the successes, how much difference we've done in this community for many children. And this year, during April April 8, during the chamber mixer that the youth center puts together, we will highlight our very, very successful program, and that's our Rossmoor Park Summer Camp. And I request if you can approve our partnership again this year and let us bring the fun and joy and laughter to many kids in our community.
Any questions, gentlemen?
No questions.
So this is the first time you've, on this Parents Kids Night Out, that you've combined the two. In previous years, they've been separate functions, I take it.
This is the first time, yes, combining the movie nights, movies in the park,
Right,
and the Kids
movies.
Night Out together. It was actually Chris's idea. He brought it in and he said, let's work together to see how we could make it even more fun. And working from my experience, being a parent, having a daughter who always say, can I go to the movies in the park? And I don't quite want to go to movies in the park, but she does. So Kids Night Out is a perfect option where the kids could go and the parents can enjoy a quiet night home if they need one night like that.
Thank you.
I like your idea of a puppy party. That sounds fun. So what happens on water days on Friday? Just crazy water going everywhere?
Water Day is fun, especially at the Rossmoor Park, because the kids are stuck at school throughout the whole school year. So Rossmoor Park is ideal time for summer camp, and of course during summer it's hot. So during Fridays, every time after lunch, we conduct our water days where they have from water balloon fights to slip and slides and just everything around water. They have staff versus kids competitions, anything to do with water. It's super fun. They love
It could
it.
be every kid against Chris,
Could be.
and we could set that up.
Absolutely. That would be fun.
Okay. Perfect. Is there a motion here, gentlemen?
So move. I would recommend we continue with our partnership with the youth center.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let it be no 5-0 on section H3. Thank you so much, Lena.
And thank you again. Thank you for having us. This partnership means so much to us and so many families who are being served by this partnership. So thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we're on H4, Shakespeare by the Sea request for co-sponsorship of their performance of Midsummer Night's Dream.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. In this request, there is no setup or staff support required. It's an outstanding activity, and I'd recommend for the board's consideration that they approve this request.
Okay. I like the dates better this year than last year. Last year it was so close to the 4th of July that it was one of those things that I think a lot of people missed a bit.
Yeah, this will be July 12th and 13th, so get
I like the
past
dates better.
holiday.
Yeah.
2 dates. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm all for culture here. So you, on Saturday, for anyone watching on TV, Saturday, Young Prince's Struggle. And then on Sunday, Puck Makes Mischief with Fairy Royalty. Hamlet and Midsummer Night's Dream. I'm all for culture, guys. Anyone have a motion here?
A motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Nope. Let it be known, Rossmoor loves culture, 5-0. Okay. Okay, we already discussed H5 earlier with council here, so that now brings us to item H6, discussion and possible action regarding the reconfiguration of the intersection of St. Cloud Drive and Seal Beach Boulevard. Mr. Ruth.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, President, and members of the board, I did talk to Sean Crumley again today. He's the Deputy City Manager for City of Seal Beach. He's assured me that, subject to your direction tonight, if we sent them a letter, that they would consider us a priority for their traffic division over there, and it is not in the current budget. They would consider that with other budget requests for next year. They're also looking at the entire boulevard to see how they can make improvements up and down the boulevard, so not just this one. But he indicated they were supportive of it, and they would be subject to your direction here tonight. Certainly put that on their capital improvement program and plan for it in the future.
So what would the timing be?
He didn't give me the exact time. We'll know that better after they get through the budget process. It's not in the budget for this year, the current year, so it'll have to be starting for next year. So they would be planning this year and budget for it next year.
I'll say, are they on a calendar budget or a fiscal budget? Do we know when they're?
Be a fiscal budget.
Okay.
July 1 to June 30?
I'm sorry?
July 1 to June 30.
So in other words, during the summer, they would possibly could take action on this?
And he did know the estimated cost. He's going to be checking on that as well to see, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a very expensive cost on this thing. But they would said they'd program it, they would build it into hopefully next year's budget.
Okay.
That's great.
Gentlemen, do you want to discuss this, or is there a motion? Because we heard
I'd like to
that
make a motion that we adopt a resolution that we, that we urge the city of Seal Beach to reconfigure the intersection of St. Cloud and Seal Beach to allow for left-hand turns and, what do you,
Straight.
Direct access.
direct
each
access
way.
across the boulevard.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I'll second. This is long past due to take care of this, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Let it be known 5-0 that was passed. Which now leads us to general manager items. Mr. Ruth.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll make it quick. Several of these items actually we already covered this evening. Just to give you an update, we are currently working on the fee study, doing the formatting, looking for the structure, looking at comparative agencies. We're certainly, Emily will be back on the 19th of this month, and that'll help in terms of facilitating and expediting this project, working with Henry as we presented at the last meeting. We have preliminary data, and we're analyzing the marketplace right now and how that marketplace has changed, and we'll be hopefully, and not hopefully, we will be coming back to the board within 90 days with a full report for your consideration in that matter. The signature wall, we've looked at that. We looked at the insurance company's assessment on that thing. We think there might be some ways to save some money on that project, and we brought in a civil engineer. He's looked at it, and he agrees with us, so he's going to do a little more analyzing for us. We're going to take photos of each panel and then identify those that are most deteriorated and which we know that absolutely have to be replaced, and then we'll compute a cost on that basis. So we'll be getting back to you on that, but hopefully, I went out and walked with him the other day, and hopefully, I don't think it's going to be as expensive as we had anticipated, but we're going to get a couple of masons to also look at it once we get that data and have them kind of give us their assessment in terms of the installation of the new bricks and the removal of the old ones. So we'll keep you updated on that, but we're trying to keep the costs. We're not going to shortchange the project, but we're certainly trying to save some money on it if we can.
That's great.
Lutheran Church, that sign was installed, looks really good. And we've been working with Ron Clausen up there, who's their maintenance director, and looking at their traffic issues. Ingress, egress up there is terrible, and particularly in the morning when you have a lot of traffic going to and from work and also the schools up there. So we've turned that over to Ralph Artebedian and the traffic committee from the homeowners group, and they're going to be working with the county to see if the county would come out in their traffic division, take a look at that and see what kind of mitigations they can make to improve that situation out there. It's almost impossible to get in and out of that parking lot in the morning. It's really bad, and then you got queuing, parking, cars backing up, blocking the other intersections, difficult getting out of the side streets. It's really kind of a mess. We were up there and looked at it.
It is a mess.
So they're doing everything they can. Mr. Clausen is very accommodating, and he's working with the traffic committee, hopefully, to see if they can come up with some resolutions. In the
Just
county.
hope that the county will work with
Yes, sir.
RHA and we'll work with them.
Yes, sir.
Because that's been a problem intersection for as long as I can remember.
When we installed the sign up there, we were talking at basically behind the sign, putting some poles up and running some banners. They would feature banners. And he came up and said, I said, that's not a big priority. What's a priority is traffic up here. So Henry and I got right on it, and we contacted the traffic committee for the RHA, and they came out, looked at it. They've got the county involved, and the county's going to look at it and come up with some recommendations for them.
Good stuff.
And then just as a matter of information, I did attend the county luncheon at the Pacific Club on the state of the county. Sean Nelson, the chair of the County Board of Supervisors, spoke and was able to interact with quite a few of the county people as well as other elected officials at that meeting. It's always building relationships and making sure they understand some of our issues at Rossmoor. And then secondly, attended the Caltrans meeting on Monday and made sure that they understood that we were very unhappy with the delay by Caltrans to state level on the options for the toll road out here on the 405 freeway. And they just kind of played dumb on it, which you expect. I shouldn't use that term dumb, but like they weren't aware, and they may not be aware of what the real plan is. But, you know, when they deferred it to after the election, you know daggum well that they're looking for a more suitable and support time out there to get that project moving. And we hope and pray that it's not that daggum toll road. But there's a lot of cities watching that very carefully right now. And I know that our good board member, Ron Casey, is on top of it, and he's been monitoring as well, and we'll keep monitoring it through the local.
Yeah, I had some additional comments on that as well, but it still seems as though that most of the electeds from the corridor cities on the 405, this just gives them another time to get on their bandwagon to ask for additional lanes, because in the central part of that freeway, it doesn't affect them. It affects Rossmoor and Seal Beach.
You have a lot more knowledge of this than I do, but when I looked at the projected cost for 2 lanes, one in each way, which is what you guys recommend, when I looked at the possibility of adding another lane, 2 lanes in each direction, it was only like $100,000 difference.
That's what they say, yes. And that's why they're jumping on that bandwagon,
Yeah.
precisely for that reason.
Yeah, financially,
Well, that's one of the reasons.
that's attractive from a budget standpoint. However, where we live, having all those zones, you have a fixed Long Beach, which they're not going to accept all those lanes, so they're going to all taper down where? Right in front of us.
Oh.
So you could tell that we have a different point of view than some of those central cities, because we have to live with the aftermath. We have to live with the extra pollution, and especially when you look at all of our schools. And when is traffic? Traffic is early in the morning, creating all that extra emissions and stuff. So we've been pretty adamant that, especially on this portion here, that it should be only 1 extra lane. If they want to add an extra lane, you know, from the 22 south to Costa Mesa, more power to them, but at least here it should only go down to 1.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you very much. We're now at board member items. I'm going to start with Alfred first.
3 items. One, Mr. Maynard, whenever you're available, we should meet with our last monument location.
Brad. Yeah.
2, Mr. Ruth, maybe in the future, next month or sometime thereafter, you could address the progress of plans to upgrade the landscaping around the monument at Wallingsford.
I'm sorry. I'm going
To upgrade the landscaping at the bed of the monument on Wallingsford and Coletta.
Okay.
Ms. Williamson will give you some assistance with that.
All right.
And then the last item is something I gleaned from the amended budget that the Budget Committee put forth that we approved, in that the wall fund currently has monies to pay the principal and interest for the remaining of the certificates of participation, and we have a restricted fund for the wall that our former district council has approved, as well as the auditor, that could be expended for repairs. And thankfully, we have that reserve or restricted funds for this repair, given SDRMA has concluded that the repair is not within the insurance policy. And we all know there's not an insurance policy that covers everything. But at some point in 2016, the wall will be completely paid for. And there will be no further reserve or restricted funds, because all the special assessments on our real property assessments will have been completed to pay that note, that obligation. So if there are future repairs beyond 2016, after we spend $60,000 or $70,000 to make the current repair, if there is the hypothetical repair that's necessary that doesn't come within the umbrella, what SDRMA would say is a reimbursable expense, we're stuck with the repair of the wall. The community will be looking to the district's reserves or some other set-aside monies to make the repair. So I just plant that seed for the whoever the members are of the future budget committee to think about that, because as an example, we have currently set aside $25,000 for the fiscal year in the event, God forbid, we have to repair the parking lot for patch. We may have to do the same thing with the wall.
Right,
And
right.
if a car hits it, God forbid, the wall, we've had a repair. That was within
Insurance would
SDRMA.
cover that.
Correct. But there's some unforeseen things that we can't think of everything, and oh, well, this isn't one of those. You know?
No, you're right.
So just a seed for thought, and I'll let it go at that. That's all I have.
Director Casey.
As James Ruth alluded to, the Measure M I-405 freeway expansion, the OCTA recently announced a delay in the EIR for the project, which it was originally scheduled to basically be completed at the end of May of 2014. And OCTA and Caltrans held a meeting without the board members of the OCTA even being involved with the say-so. The first meeting, which I believe was around 5 or 6 weeks ago, delayed the EIR from May to July. Subsequently, they had another meeting, and they rescheduled it from July to September. And after that, I don't know the time frame, probably within the last 2 weeks, if I understand it correctly, they made one last delay from September to November, which coincidentally is exactly during election time. And at that time, there are several of the OCTA board members, their terms are up at that time, and it's hard to know exactly which ones of them will be put back on the board. There could be a lot of new faces, and therefore, maybe some of the people are hoping for a different set of decision makers that may be coerced into making some decisions that are more favorable to possibly Caltrans and OCTA. And the other part of this is that for each month of the delay, and this was talked about when they approved Alternative 1 back in December of last year, it's an additional $3 million cost to the project in addition to what is already a $270 million shortfall. So, you know, this is very bothersome. It's like the project that will never end. And we have, for the community's information, if you didn't already know this, on our website we have information about our outreach person on the project, which is Christina Byrne, and it has her phone number and her email address for anybody sending comments about what they think of what's going on with the project. And she's very cooperative, as far as I know, in responding to any questions or outrage or whatever thoughts you have on this. But I think this is very important, and it just keeps dragging along at a greater and greater cost. And that's it for tonight.
Thank you. Bill?
I have nothing.
Marco?
Do we have any, I mean, I saw it on our update, but how's the cloud coming or any, because just an update, it's been a month, so I'm just, if there's nothing, there's nothing, I'm just questioning.
We're compiling a detailed report for the next agenda
Okay,
and also for the budget committee meeting.
Okay, all right, and June we have to make a decision, what's lay it out to where we have to make the
Windows XP expires April 8th of this year. And then our warranty on our server expires in May of this year.
Okay, and we're talking, so the warranty expires. It doesn't mean the server is going to crash, but it's just the warranty expires.
True.
Okay. And I concur, Mr. Ruth, about the traffic. I'm in that traffic on Wallingford, so I would imagine you and the powers to be, and with the county can come up with possibly a solution, especially there for the church who's helped us out with the monument sign and all that stuff. So it is a mess
Situation.
for about 40 minutes is all. I mean, it's a mess. And Lieutenant Gunzel, thank you very much for the report. It's fascinating to see the detail. We see the crime report, but when you give us the detail like this, like catalytic converters being stolen for one particular month, it's nice to see that. I appreciate you taking your time to come down here and explain these response times. So when we get questioned, we can hopefully give a good enough answer to suffice. That's it.
I also want to thank Lieutenant Gunzel for your report. And this is just the message for everybody who watches this or hears this. Most of these crimes are crime of opportunity, and it's because we're lazy. We forget that our garage is open. We forget to lock the doors. We leave an iPad right on your car seat. We don't have locks on our back gates. These are some of the easiest, inexpensive things you can do to deter crime. So lock up your back gates. That's going to cost you $5 per lock. Not that hard to do. And let's just take away the opportunities. Let's be a little bit more diligent. So that's all I have for tonight. So with that, is there a motion for adjournment?
So motioned.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.